to rock this place.
Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, ready to talk Super Wildcard Weekend with everyone. But first, I'd like to bring on my co-host, Joe Dalio. So without any further delay, here's Joe. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
It's going great, Jamie. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. We were just talking backstage about Curtis Samuel being a veteran presence, could be a secret weapon for the Bills in the playoffs, and how it didn't start out easy against Denver, but then they found a way to pull away at the end, also using old-fashioned running the football.
Yes, indeed. There were some things about that game that surprised me. There were some things about that game that did not surprise me. And I'm sure you feel the same way, and we'll soon be talking about those things.
We also had some other games, too, that were interesting, which we're going to talk about. So you ready to do it?
I am ready. Yes, there was a lot of great football to talk about and more coming up to talk about, too.
Exactly. So let's get on to our first Saturday game of Super Wildcard Weekend. The 5th seed, 11-6 LA Chargers, taking on the AFC South champion and 4th seed, the 10-7 Houston Texans at NRG Stadium. With 9:37 left in the first quarter, Cameron Dicker, the kicker, kicked a 35-yard field goal to bring the score to 3-0 Chargers. With 6:35 left in the first quarter, Dicker kicked his second field goal of the afternoon, this time for 39 yards to make the score 6-0 Chargers. With 58 seconds left in the second quarter, Nico Collins caught a 13-yard touchdown pass from C.J. Stroud, bringing the score to 7-6 Texans. With 3 seconds left in the half, Kai Fairbaugh made a 41-yard field goal, ending halftime at 10-6 Texans. With 4:48 in the third quarter, Fairbaugh connected on his second field goal, this time from 37 yards, bringing the score to 13-6 Texans. With 13 seconds left in the quarter, Eric Murray returned a 37-yard interception return to close out the third quarter, bringing the score to 20-6 Texans. With 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Fairbaugh hit his third field goal from 30 yards, bringing the score to 23-6 Texans. With 10:38 left in the fourth quarter, Ladd McConkey caught a 86-yard touchdown pass. 86-yard touchdown pass, correct, folks, from Justin Herbert to make it 23-12 Houston. That handsome young Ladd McConkey. But Dicker's extra point was blocked, and Houston's D'Angelo Ross ran it back for a 2-point conversion, making the score 25-12. Houston, come on in, Houston. With 3:42 left in the game, Joe Mixon-Match put the game on ice with a 17-yard touchdown score as the Houston Texans win the game 32-12 over the LA Chargers. So, Joe, were you surprised that the Texans came out and beat the Chargers with such driving force?
Yes, I was. I was surprised that the Texans won the game in the first place because I did expect the Chargers to win. But I was more surprised by how dominant that the Texans were and how hesitant it seems that the Chargers were. And here's a couple of things that I could point out on both sides. Now, I'm a big fan of Justin Herbert. I've always liked him since he played, in Oregon, in college. I enjoyed, watching him with the Chargers, and I couldn't wait till he had a good coach and a good team here so he can make some noise and show his true talent. And he finally got that this year. He got a real coach. Again, especially, one that's good with quarterbacks, being a quarterback himself, Jim Harbaugh, and a solid team around him, some good receivers, a good defense on this team as well. And I was like, all right, Justin Herbert finally gets a chance to shine in the playoffs. Look out for this guy. And I am hoping that what we saw here in this game is not an indication of how Justin Herbert is going to play in the playoffs. I am hoping this was just a fluke. I am hoping this was maybe a little nerves. This is definitely a case of Houston stepping up defensively here. They played an excellent game on defense. But I'm just a little worried. I mean, Herbert had 4 interceptions, including that pick 6. And that was the ball game right there. As soon as that pick 6 happened, I knew the game was over. And for all intents and purposes, it was. So 4 interceptions in a playoff game like this. And I'm hoping this is not the type of playoff performance we see from Justin Herbert going forward. I hope he redeems himself in the future. Now let's take a look at the other side. I expected Houston to take a step down this year. They kind of did. They won their division by default. If they were in any other division, they're probably not in the playoffs. So I expected it. Not that they're horrible, but just, again, playing a first place schedule. Nobody was looking for them last year, and now everybody's gunning for Houston because they know that they're a solid team. But they're starting to make a habit in the playoffs, CJ Stroud and the Texans here, 2 years in a row of playing this home game as the 4th seed and beating a team that had a better record than them. They did it with Joe Flacco and the Browns last year and stepped up and won that game handily, and did the same thing here, playing great on both sides of the ball, playing against a team that I think is better than them overall. But definitely Houston played like the better team. And, the Chargers did have some great performances. You mentioned McConkey. He had almost 200 yards in that game. So even if you take away that 86-yard touchdown there, he still ended up with like 110 yards, besides that, and like 7 catches, to go along with that. So the Chargers did have some good performances there, but certainly not by their quarterback, Herbert. And the Texans, on the other hand, just their stars showed up. Nico Collins played amazing. CJ Stroud played solid. Again, the defense stepped up. I mean, again, that's, they gave Justin Herbert fits, and, that's one of the reasons that Herbert had a rough game here. So, can they go further? I guess we'll discuss that shortly, but definitely, again, another great first-round game for the Texans, playing a superior team on their home turf and coming up big again.
Mm-hmm. So, Joe, what did you think seemed to be the problem with Justin Herbert in the offense?
I really don't know. I didn't see a lot of this game. I listened to the first part of it. I was traveling and hanging out with some friends and that. So, I had it on the radio, and, I caught kind of the beginning and the end. I put it back on like 2 minutes before that pick 6 interception, where basically the game was over. So I really didn't get a chance to see a lot of it. I was hearing it and listening to it and watching it from a distance. But even, watching some things, it just sounds like Herbert was not ready for the moment. And, the team played tight. Harbaugh has playoff success, and I expected this team to play loose and come out playing with house money. But it seemed like they played tight, which surprised me from a Jim Harbaugh coach team. And, maybe it was just, Herbert not doing well with the pressure. I really can't pinpoint it. I think it's just a combination of Houston playing an excellent game and just the team coming out a little bit tight. They had opportunities, the Chargers, to score touchdowns early, and they didn't do that. They couldn't come through in the red zone. They had to settle for field goals there. So, that had something to do with it. They make plays at the right time, and maybe it's a different story. But they were unable to score when it counted and just came out tight, I thought. Did you see anything with that maybe would show, like, why this happened, and anything you noticed?
It was just tightness and nervousness, not playing like the calm, cool, and collected Justin Herbert he normally does.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
normally is.
Because that was my observation too.
Mm-hmm. But give credit to Houston, though. They really found a way to just open up a can in this game. So
Yeah.
like they did to Cleveland last year.
Yep. Same exact situation. You know, the Browns and the Chargers had better records than them. And I think the Browns did. I know the Chargers did, but they played like they were the superior team. The Texans did.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to the second Saturday Super Wildcard Weekend games. Let's talk about superior team here. The 10-7 Pittsburgh Steelers. Congratulations, they won the regular season again, as our producer would say, taking on the 12-5 Baltimore Ravens at M&T Stadium. On 3rd and 13, Lamar Jackson threw a touchdown pass to Rashad Bateman on a 13-play drive with 4:50 left in the first quarter, bringing the score to 7-0 Baltimore. With 4:09 left in the second quarter, Derrick King Henry scored on an 8-yard touchdown run, increasing the Ravens' lead to 14-0. On second and goal with 11 seconds left in the half, Jackson threw a 5-yard touchdown pass to Justice Hill on a 90-yard, 9-play drive to close out the halftime score. Baltimore 21, Pittsburgh 0. Derrick Henry finished the first half with 13 carries for 100 yards. And just to be funny, folks, 50 of them was from his auto workout, and the other 50 yards were from his home workout where he's lifting Jake from State Farm's living room, except the dog doesn't belong on the couch, Derek. Other than that, he had a great first half. If anybody knows what we're talking about, there's a State Farm commercial with Derrick Henry and Jake from State Farm talking about his auto home workout. And at the end for home, he's trying to lift or he's trying to sand lift or curl, not curl, but I can't think of the right word too, but it's a great commercial. Yeah, he's trying to like lift. He's trying to lift the sled pole. There you go. Yeah,
that's it.
He's trying to sled pull Jake from State Farm's living room, and he goes home, and then Jake from State Farm goes, "This is my living room," and then he goes, "The dog doesn't belong on the couch, Derek." So anyway, you guys will get the gist of it. It's a great commercial. I'm terrible in explaining it, but go watch it. It's even better. Anyway,
you'll see it plenty of times in the rest of these games.
Yep. On 3rd and 10, Russell Wilson threw a 30-yard touchdown pass to Van Jefferson on a 9-play drive with 8:05 left in the third quarter to cut the lead to 21-17 Baltimore. And Sierra, Russell Wilson's wife, was like, "I'm out," after he threw that throw. That's a song by her, one of her famous singles from 2015.
Mm-hmm.
With 5:49 left in the third quarter, Henry took it to the house again for a 44-yard touchdown, running away from Otto, then home again on a 4-yard play, 17-yard drive to increase the Ravens score to 28-7. With 3:24 left in the third quarter, Wilson threw a scorching 36-yard pass to George Pickens. I think he's a beast. And a 70-yard drive, taking 2.5 minutes off the clock, cutting the score in half, 28-14 Baltimore. And again, we have a Sierra sighting. She said, "I'm out." And that's how the game would end, with the Baltimore Ravens beating the Pittsburgh Steelers 28-14, moving on to take on our Buffalo Bills next Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on NBC in the AFC divisional round. So, Joe, what did you think about the Steelers? What do you think Joe, what do you think about Derrick Henry getting 100 yards rushing in the first half alone? I think I may have asked that already, but I didn't. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. Just Derrick Henry played like Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson played like Lamar Jackson. The Baltimore Ravens played like the Baltimore Ravens. They dominated this game from start to finish. I was able to watch most of this game. And it shows how much I know about football. I make a lot of good predictions. This wasn't one of them. I said this game was going to be close through the third quarter here, and that the Steelers would be battling and it would be close, and then the Ravens would eventually take it away in the fourth quarter. Didn't really materialize. The Steelers played like they didn't belong on this field, and I think this game could have been, a little bit more. The score doesn't indicate it because, I mean, the Ravens won by 14. I had the Steelers keeping it close. I paid money to be wrong here because I had the Steelers at plus 10.5, thinking it would be a little closer. And even though they only lost by 14, I think the Ravens dominated this by a lot more than that. So, Derrick Henry with 185 yards, something like that, 188. Lamar Jackson had 81 yards rushing himself, plus 2 touchdown passes. So this was pure domination by the Ravens. So much so that hard to believe, but I don't know if you knew this, Jamie, that going into this week's game, they have the Ravens as favorites in this game.
Over the Bills?
They do.
A road favorite by how much?
1.5 points.
Oh, really? Wow. Anyway, what did you think the Steelers did after halftime to bring them alive to finally start to play well in the second half?
I don't know. They just didn't want to be embarrassed. I think somebody said something, whether it was the coach, who's obviously taken a lot of criticism as this team was very flat. Maybe it was the players in the locker room that just, said, look, let's just do something here. I really don't know, but it was just that. Let's just say the Ravens showed up and showed who the better team was here right from the start. There was never any doubt in my mind about this game.
All right. Now I know we know what our producer is going to say about his coach after this game, but do you think it's crying wolf again, or do you think he's actually going to get fired now for good? What do you think, Mike Tomlin?
Well, Adam always talks about that, and I understand. I mean, I tell him all the time. He's from Pittsburgh. I don't know what it's like to live in a city with championship tradition. All right, when it comes to football, okay. Growing up, I was, on Long Island. I was a Giants fan. They won a couple of Super Bowls, yes, but still not a Super Bowl tradition there. And certainly here in Buffalo, no such thing as a championship tradition. So I don't understand, and I never understood what he was talking about, although logical explanation. They're used to winning championships and, saying that the people in Pittsburgh, they're kind of settling for mediocrity here. And I always said it was a tough call because you got a great coach that, you're always going to be in the mix. You're almost always a playoff team here, always a winning record. But I think we're at a time at this point where I understand it more than I ever have. And I think it's time for a change to be made. Now, it was one of the guys on TV was talking about this after the game. I think it was Kirk, what's his name, Hype Street or whatever his name is.
Kirk Herbstreit, yeah.
Herbstreit, yeah.
Because it was on Amazon Prime. Right.
And he said it was right before the game end. He says, let's not use the F word here. We don't, the guy, after all he's done, maybe does not deserve to be fired. But let's have a meeting. Let's realize that it's time to make a change here. Let's amicably, whatever it is, the word is, move on. And thank you very much for all you've done for us. A championship in there. But I think a change has to be made now in Pittsburgh. And I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be more surprised if Tomlin stays there than if a change is made. I think it's time. I think they do it the right way if it happens. And just like, he said, don't just outright and drop the axe on the guy. Let's find a way to cut ties, in a positive way. So I think they have to make that change now.
Yeah, I see it too now. I think it is time to make that change. But I think with that being said, I think now's the time to make a change, kind of like how the Cowboys realized it was time to make a change because they couldn't extend to McCarthy. A lot of candidates will probably want that Steelers job, just like how they're going to want the Dallas job.
Right. And are you kidding? The way the Steelers treat coaches. I've been watching football for, I don't know, 50 years almost. 48 years I've been watching football. And you know how many coaches the Steelers have had in that time? 3.
3, yeah.
So, I mean, it's a great gig. Any coach is going to want to coach the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, of course, they have a very high standard to live up to, and they're going to have to live up to that standard. But if they do so, they know that they got job security, and it's a great place to be. And they could be the next one that's there for 20 years. Who knows?
Right. So now drawing our attention to our game of the week. Yes, sirree. The Sunday 1:00 matchup between the number 7 seed 10-7 Denver Broncos, or as we call them, the Horsies, versus the number 2 seed 13-4, the number 2 seed for the 3rd year in a row, 13-4 Buffalo Bills at Highmark Stadium. Joe, the Steelers love winning the regular season. I think the Bills love clinching the 2 seed every year.
Right?
2 years in a row now.
Just turns out that way. Except this year they had it locked up earlier, whereas last year they had to wait till the last day to clinch it.
Yep. So anyway, let's get started. Let's get it started in here. With 12:43 left in the first quarter, Bo Nix threw a 43-yard bomb to rookie Troy Franklin, who actually during the draft probably could have been one of the Bills' choices at receivers in that awesome rookie class this year in 2024, which we got Coleman and they got Franklin for a 70-yard drive, taking 2:24 off the clock on 3rd and 8, giving the Broncos the early lead 7-0. Oh my gosh, the Broncos are going to do it. They're going to come in. They're going to upset Buffalo. All those chances we want Buffalo. But with 7:10 left in the first quarter, Tyler Bass Pro Shops kicked a 26-yard field goal, cutting the lead to 7-3 Broncos. With 13:02 left in the second quarter, James Cook, rushed it in for a 5-yard touchdown run to give the Bills their first lead of the game, 10-7. With 5 seconds left until halftime, Will Lutz missed a 50-yard field goal to keep the Bills lead 10-7 at halftime. That could have been the game there, too. That was possibly the game. Imagine if he makes that field goal and it's 10-10.
It could be a different story. You're right.
Yep. With 10:06 left in the third quarter, Bass kicked his second field goal of the afternoon, this time from 27 yards, bringing the score to 13-7 Bills. With 3:15 left in the third quarter on a 4th-and-1 play, Allen threw a 24-yard touchdown pass to Ty Johnson, and they converted on a 2-point conversion play to Keon Coleman, increasing their lead to 21-7. That was an awesome play that Johnson managed to keep his feet in. It was a great throw by Allen, as always. To start the fourth quarter, Allen converted on a 50-yard pass to Curtis Samuel. Welcome to the party, my friend. To bring the score on a 3-possession game, 28-7 Bills. With 4:41 left in the fourth quarter, Bass kicked his third field goal for 37 yards to bring the score to 31-7 Buffalo, and that's how the game would end. So, Joe, what did you think about, once again, the Bills starting out slow in the beginning of the game, but then actually realizing we could play well the rest of the game, whereas another team in Buffalo in a different sport always plays well in the beginning, but then forgets there's another part of the game they have to play, the complete opposite.
Right, here we go. Buffalo Sabres. Whoops, there we go. Biggest joke in hockey. But that's for another time and another place. I said it on the podcast last week. I expected this game to be close, like into the third quarter, maybe even going into the fourth quarter. I did expect Denver to start fast. And again, I expected it to be very close, and then the Bills take it away in the fourth quarter. Well, things just happened a little earlier than I thought. You know, Denver started on fire and again, had some people thinking. And again, I was a little nervous before this because I really expected the Bills to win this game. I would have been shocked had they not. But, we said it on the podcast here last week that the Broncos were confident that they were going into this game thinking they could win this game. The last time the Bills lost at home was against the Denver Broncos. Again, no Bo Nix and some different players, but same coach. And again, this team came in here thinking they can win this game. So that's always dangerous. And a team with nothing to lose, playing with house money here. And coming out, on the first drive, very quickly making a big play and scoring. So, yes, it looked a little scary there at first. And I'm thinking this is exactly according to my script. They're starting fast. They're going to battle with the Bills, and the Bills will eventually take it away. Well, instead of waiting till the fourth quarter to take it away, the Bills basically took it away in the second quarter and were extremely dominant, going forward. And I give credit to the way the Broncos fought. They never gave up in this game. And, they were trying to keep it close and trying to make plays to get into it. And again, I had a friend, that I was talking to that said, look, this game wasn't easy, but it was still convincing. Okay. The Bills, nothing about this game was really easy, but still a convincing win in this round is excellent. And again, they took it away and really took control of the game a little sooner than I thought they would. But give credit to Denver. I thought they played as well as they could have. And, it's disappointing for them. And I think Bo Nix is smart enough to learn from this. And we'll see what happens with the Broncos going forward.
Mm-hmm. What did you think about the Buffalo Bills defense actually finally stopping the run after that's kind of been a struggle the last few games and really all year as it's been a struggle for them lately. But in a game where they absolutely where each game is win in advance or lose and go home, they did a good job stopping Denver's running game, I feel like.
I completely agree that this was one of the best defensive efforts I've seen from the Bills in quite a while. This is what we expected from them. Now, I got to be honest, it's not going to matter if they can't stop the run next week. And we all know that's going to be a tall task that we'll talk about in a few minutes here. But still, you got to admire what they did in this game. And again, like I said, one of the best defensive efforts I've seen in several weeks from the Bills.
Mm-hmm. Now let's take a look at the 4:30 Sunday competition between the number 7 seed and upset hungry 11-6 Green Bay Packers taking on the 14-3 number 2 seed in the NFC East, Philadelphia Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. With 13:21 left in the first quarter, the newest Eagle and former Washington Commander draft pick Jahan Dotson caught an 11-yard pass from Jalen Hurts so good to bring the score to 7-0 Eagles. With 19 seconds left in the first quarter, Jake Elliott hit a 31-yard field goal to increase the Eagles' lead to 10-0. With 5:46 left in the third quarter, Brad McManus kicked a 26-yard field goal, Brandon McManus kicked a 26-yard field goal, getting the Packers finally on the board, 10-3 Eagles, after they just couldn't punch it in. They finally got a field goal there.
Mm-hmm.
With 3:20 left in the third quarter, Dallas Goedert caught a 24-yard touchdown pass from Hurts, but Elliott missed the extra point, bringing the score to 16-3 Eagles. How about that? Jalen Hurts has got a man named Dallas on his roster, but he plays in Philadelphia. Chris Berman, are you watching? I think you could have used that line.
Right. How ironic is that?
Mm-hmm. With 14:56 left in the fourth quarter, Josh Jacobs ran it in for a 4-yard touchdown, bringing the score to 16-10 Eagles. With 7:33 remaining in the game, Elliott kicked his second field goal, this time from 30 yards, bringing the score to 19-10 Eagles. With 3:12 left in the game, Elliott kicked his third field goal for 32 yards, eliminating the Packers and bringing the final score to 22-10 and winning their super wild card game. So, Joe, what did you think about this being kind of a ho-hum game at the beginning being a close game and then Philly eventually being the better team and finding their way to come out with the win and pulling away. I know I'm ready for what you're going to say here. So go ahead. What do you always say?
I'm at a loss here, but I'll tell you what I was thinking as the game goes on here. Now, first of all, this reminded me a little bit of the Pittsburgh and Baltimore game. You know, it was never really close, but with that Baltimore game, you never thought Pittsburgh was going to come back. With this one, I was nervous for the Eagles. Now, I'm not an Eagles fan. I didn't really care who won this. I've been saying all season long that the Eagles are going to go to the Super Bowl. So I kind of wanted them to win, if anything, just to make my prediction look right. But I was nervous for the Eagles. So I can only imagine what Eagles fans felt like. There was a point in this game, like fourth quarter, I think, where, and you were talking about it there, but the Eagles were up by 6 in the fourth quarter. And I'm thinking they are one pick six, one fumble, one crazy play away from going down in this game and being behind, and the Packers somehow figuring out how to win here. So I was nervous for the Eagles. And if I'm an Eagles fan, I'm biting my nails. I'm nervous here. What's the one thing that's going to happen that's going to ruin this whole season? Because it was this close to happening, even though this game had absolutely no business being that close. The Eagles completely dominated, even though they didn't play their best game. Certainly the Packers did not play their best game and weren't clicking at all on any cylinders, really. But somehow, mid-fourth quarter, had a chance to win this game. God only knows how.
Yeah, but Joe, what do you always say, though? You know what you always say. Good teams.
As far as, I got you now. The fact that good teams, better teams, figure out ways to win. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say that was the Eagles who did that.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally true. I'm sorry, Jamie. It took me 3 minutes here or whatever it was to figure it out. That, I have a tendency to repeat myself. I said, I have a tendency to repeat myself. I said, no, I'm just kidding. But that is something that I say all the time. You're right. And I can't believe I couldn't think of it here now. But I think the Eagles, even though the Packers are a rising team, Jordan Love, we're going to see him in more playoffs if you want my prediction there. But this was a case where, as is said here, the better team figured out a way to put this one away.
But Joe, let me bring you to my next point. Okay, this is what we talked about. This okay. So I picked the Packers to upset this game because it was another 7-2 game, and because last year they were the 7th seed and they beat the Cowboys, who were the 2 seed. This time they unfortunately didn't with the Eagles. With that being said, do you think Philadelphia was a better 2 seed this year than Dallas was last year? I mean, for Green Bay to play against?
Yes. I say that too because, they were dealing with a Mike McCarthy coached Dallas Cowboys last year. This, was a broken record. I mean, how many times did Dallas choke with McCarthy as coach in a big game at home, right? They had done it a year or two before against the Santa Clara 49ers. So, it was bound to happen again. And if this was the Cowboys again this year, I wouldn't put it past the Packers winning again. But I thought the Cowboys last year were a potential Super Bowl team. And I think the Eagles are a definite Super Bowl team here. So I think there is a little bit of a stronger team here with the Eagles.
Okay. Yep. Moving on to one of the best games probably of the Super Wild Card weekend. The 8:15 Sunday night matchup. We've been waiting all day for Sunday night. The Commanders and the Bucks and a primetime fight. Anyway, this matchup was between the 12-5 number 6 seed in the NFC Washington Commanders taking on the number 3 seed and the NFC South champs, the 10-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Raymond James Stadium. First down, Tampa Bay. With 11:35 left in the first quarter, Chase McLaughlin hit a 50-yard field goal, bringing the score to 3-0 Tampa Bay. With 9:26 left in the second quarter, De'Ami Brown caught a 10-yard pass from Jaden Daniels, bringing the score to 17-3 Washington. With 1:52 left in the third quarter, Zane Gonzalez hit a 52-yard field goal, bringing the score to 10-3 Washington. With 10 seconds left in the half, Mike Evans, not Bob Evans, caught a 1-yard pass from Baker Mayfield, tying the score at 10-all at halftime. Although he's serving those touchdowns in the end zone, much like Bob Evans serves up their yummy breakfast
there.
with potatoes.
There you go.
With 10:30 left in the third quarter, Gonzalez kicked his second field goal of the game, this time from 22 yards, bringing the score to 13-10 Washington. With 4:31 left in the third quarter, Bucky Irving caught a 4-yard touchdown pass from Mayfield, bringing the score to 17-0 Tampa Bay at the end of 3 quarters. With 9:36 left in the fourth quarter, Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, hauled in a 5-yard completion from Daniels, bringing the score to 20-7 Washington. With 4:41 left, McLaughlin hit a 32-yard field goal to tie the score at 20-all. With no time on the clock, Gonzalez kicked his third field goal from 37 yards to give Washington the upset win and taking them to the NFC divisional round, where they will face the number 1 seed Detroit Lions, who had a first-round bye in the NFC at Ford Field. This brought the final score to Washington 23, Tampa 20. So, Joe, wasn't this a very exciting game going back and forth? It could have gone either way, but I'm going to say congratulations has to go out to Jaden Daniels, and the Commanders for pulling out the win. Now, we obviously give Bo Nix his flowers for making the playoffs as a rookie quarterback, but how about Jaden Daniels winning his first playoff game as a rookie quarterback in the same class?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Now, it's kind of bad luck on my part because I watched, the other games that day. I watched the Saturday night game and the 2 Sunday games before this one, and they were kind of ho-hum games and not anything close. And this is the one game that I saw none of. I was exhausted Sunday night and was in bed early and didn't catch any of these games. And it just sort of turns out that this was the best game of the entire weekend. And I did pick Washington to win this game. Jaden Daniels plays fearlessly, and I just had a feeling in this game he was going to play that way in his first playoff game. Again, and you mentioned Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix certainly didn't choke under the pressure. I thought he played okay. But Jaden Daniels definitely, showed up and, again, played with that confidence and swag and again, fearlessness that he's played with all year. And, the Buccaneers showed up too, and they played a great game. Baker Mayfield had an excellent game. You were talking about Bob Evans there. He was sizzling, and he played great. The stars for Tampa showed up. Bucky Irving did great too. But certainly Washington on the other side, I got to say, Terry McLaurin's making me a lot of money here. I'm playing him with touchdown props almost every week, and I'm cashing almost every week. So, I'm definitely, including this week. So I'm very thankful that he's doing what he's doing. So I'm not surprised, honestly. Both teams deserve to win this game. But in the end, I can't really give you my spiel here where, the better team won. But these teams were pretty even. And, again, the fearlessness of Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. You don't know how many times I've almost said Redskins here in the last couple of minutes, but, it's tempting. I keep almost saying it. But really, again, Jaden Daniels and the Commanders got it done in the end. And again, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels, the minute he came to LSU, big game quarterback, I thought.
Mhm.
And then you saw the minute he came to Washington, big game quarterback, even though he was a rookie.
Right. And he's played beyond rookiness, I guess, if you could use that word, all season long. And certainly, did so here too.
Yeah, anyway, I certainly think this, Joe. We'll get to our predictions later. What do you think of the chances of Washington beating Detroit next week? I don't think Detroit, even though they're the number one seed and they're playing at home, I don't think they should think Washington's going to be a cakewalk, even as a 6 seed.
No, I agree with that. They're not going to be a cakewalk. I'd be shocked if Washington wins this game against the Lions, but it's not a gimme for the Lions. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, especially when you considering the Commanders like to go for it a lot on fourth down, much as the Lions do, and that air raid offense can score a bunch of points with that Cliff Kingsbury offense. So
right,
I think they could put up a ton of points on Detroit. The question is, can they hold their defense in the end? But
right. Question. I mean, doesn't this Washington team remind you of the Lions from maybe 2 years ago? A little bit anyway.
Yeah. They do.
Same style, different types of quarterbacks and things like that, but it reminds me a little bit of the Lions from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Now on to the last but not least Super Wildcard Weekend game, the 8:15 Monday night competition between the 14-3 Minnesota Vikings taking on the 10-7. Well, in this case, the Arizona Rams, not the LA Rams, and we'll get into that why though. But in this purpose, they're so called the LA Rams by name. So with 10:22 left in the first quarter, Kyren Williams from Notre Dame caught a 5-yard pass from Matthew Stafford to bring the score to 7-0 Rams. With 4:01 left in the first quarter, Joshua Carty kicked a 34-yard field goal to bring the score to 10-0 Rams. With 14:17 left in the second quarter, Will Reichert kicked a 34-yard field goal, cutting the lead to 10-3 Rams. With 4:35 left in the second quarter, Jared Verse picked up a fumble recovery and scored, bringing the score to 17-3 Rams.
So he went in reverse then, right?
Yep. Or as Missy Elliott would say, let me work it.
Nice.
And then he got going to come up and reverse it. With 15 seconds left in the half, Davis Allen caught a 13-yard pass from Stafford to close out the half, increasing the Rams' lead to 24-7 at halftime. Or as we call him, Stafford, California, instead of Stanford, California. With 7:19 left in the third quarter, Carty kicked his second field goal, this time from 44 yards, to bring the score to 27-3 Rams. With 5:05, left in the third quarter, TJ Hawkinson, the ex-Lion, scored on a 26-yard pass from Sam Darnold, the only play of the night where he wasn't seeing ghosts.
Right.
But the 2-point conversion failed, and the Rams held up for the decisive victory, 27-9. So, Joe, what happened to our man Sam Darnold? And do you think the Vikings should keep him next year? I guess he was seeing ghosts the last 2 weeks, and it finally caught up to him.
Yeah, I have an opinion about that, which I'll share in a second. Now, you were talking about the Arizona Rams there. They seem to play more like the Kansas City Rams or the New England Rams, or the Detroit Rams, whatever you want to say. They were playing like one of the elite teams. Now, it's funny because I was taking my nephew to football practice. He has an indoor football practice on Tuesdays, and I take him there. And, on the way there, we're talking about some of the games. And the first thing he said, he says, well, the Vikings are frauds. and they kind of played that way. So, Nico is correct there that the Vikings showed that they were frauds. I don't know. Sam Darnold just kind of reverted the last couple of weeks. And it's a good question. Now, here's what I've been telling people that I think the Vikings should do. Because of course, he's got the potential to leave. They got a great quarterback, McCarthy, that was supposed to play this year, and of course had the bad injury. So I think the Vikings should keep Sam Darnold, and then let McCarthy, give him a chance to develop. And we might have talked about this before somewhere on this podcast or our open mic one. I let McCarthy develop, and you don't know how he's going to come back after this injury anyway. And whenever you think he's ready, then I think you have him take over. Now that could be in week 2 next year. That could be in week 10 next year. And, I think Sam Darnold still has the talent to win you some games. So that's one option there that I think is the best one. Now, it was pointed out to me, because I had this conversation with some other people too. They're like, you know what? The Vikings have other quarterbacks there too. Some guy named Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones you might have heard about. Yeah. He's still with the Vikings. So maybe do you keep him and you let McCarthy take the reins right away, as was going to happen this year? That's an option. And you let Sam Darnold go. I don't think it's going to take Sam Darnold too long to find another job, though, to be honest with you. I mean, there's always somebody that can use some quarterback help. And who knows, maybe the same situation. The Vikings picked him up as just somebody to have around and maybe help a young quarterback out. Well, little did they know that he was going to lead them almost to the number 1 seed in the NFC. So it turned out pretty good for both sides. So that's why if I'm the Vikings, I keep him. I don't know what the finances are like or the salary cap situation or whatever it is that the Vikings have. So that might be easier said than done. And I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world for the Vikings if he ends up leaving. Because again, you got somebody like Daniel Jones, and I don't remember the other quarterback that was mentioned, but somebody that's been around that they have. And maybe you just make McCarthy the guy right away. So I think keep Darnold, let him play the first few weeks or however long he has to next year. And then when McCarthy's ready to take over, you think, then let him take over. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I agree with what you're saying there. I think they're still in good hands with Kevin O'Connell as he's an offensive coach. I think they trust him to make this decision and help them move on to keep improving and what's going to be best for all those quarterbacks, but what's going to be best for the team too.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, what did you think about the Rams having to have their home game be moved from Inglewood to Glendale, Arizona? That was very sad about the fires and everything. And we had driving to the top productions. Our hearts go out to all the people and victims who may have been involved or lost their homes in the fire. And it's a situation that nobody wants to be in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't even imagine it. There's famous people losing homes, common people losing homes, just it is sad. And like I said, I can't even put my mind around it. But again, the Rams being willing to, go with things. And obviously it was the right move by the NFL and they made it in the right amount of time so that, nobody had to scramble or anything like that. I was a little more concerned with how the Rams were going to come out and play this game because of that. If anybody, even though, they're the home team, for some reason, I thought the Rams would be a little more frazzled over this whole thing with, them being in the middle of it. I mean, that had something to do with it too. And even some athletes, I heard JJ Redick, the Lakers head coach lost his home in the fires there. So, like I said, the acting community, the common community, the sports community, everybody's lost property here in this situation. And, so I thought, again, with the Rams being in the middle of that, maybe would be affected a little bit more negatively in this game because of it. And I certainly don't blame the Vikings' poor performance on having to, move to Arizona instead of Los Angeles. I think this same performance would have happened in LA anyway. But, the Rams went with the flow and just played a great game here.
Yeah, but you know why I think Arizona made sense too? Because you probably have a lot of Rams fans there who probably, like I said, moved from California, but still cheer on for the team down there if they don't root for the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's true. And the fact that the Rams play a game there every season, they're familiar with that stadium. I thought it was the perfect place to go. You're right. The only other logical place maybe is Las Vegas, but I think that was the ideal place to go.
You have transplants from California moving there too, Vegas.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. So they probably like the team if they don't like the Raiders. So Anyway, Joe, I know that we are going to talk about this next, but I have to ask you, how do you think that playing like they did today, that the Rams have any chance of beating the Philadelphia Eagles next week at Philadelphia? Again, I don't think much like the Commanders-Lions game, I don't think the Eagles should take the Rams seriously or take them lightly either for a fourth seed, especially that they're tragedy struck, but they're also tragedy motivated too.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would be surprised if the Rams win, but I certainly wouldn't put it past them. They have momentum now. That's one of the things with this playoff setup here is you get these teams that win games convincingly, and now you get confidence. Look out, Buffalo Bills, because you got a team coming in the same situation. But, the Rams have some momentum going. So I think they have a chance. Again, I definitely, think the Eagles win, and I'll give my official prediction when we get there. But don't put it past the Rams for sure. It's not impossible.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, let's move on to those predictions.
Perfect.
So let's make our predictions for the upcoming divisional round weekend. Let's start with, I think you know which teams we're going to be talking about. One in particular that's been a thorn in everybody's side, including our team. But anyway, let's start out with the visiting team first. On Saturday, January 18th at 4:30 on ABC or ESPN, the fourth seed Houston Texans will be traveling to Arrowhead to take on the number one seed Kansas City Chiefs, who got the number one seed on a first round bye in the AFC. Now, Joe, this game could go really any way, I feel like. So, but let's start with you, and then I'll get to what I think.
All right. So I think, again, Houston plays them tough. But again, my nephew that I was talking to was talking about the Chiefs, and he says, don't forget, we're dealing with the playoff Chiefs now. So I think the playoff Chiefs show up here. I have the Chiefs winning this game 28-17.
Okay, at least it's one of those ones where the playoff Chiefs show up, but you expect Houston not to roll over and at least put up a fight. That's what you think, at least.
I do. I think and maybe it's one of those games. You know how often the Chiefs have started slowly? I mean, what was it a couple of years ago when they were losing? I forget who it was they were playing, but they were losing like by 20 or something.
It was to them, I think.
It might have been
24-0 to them, Houston.
In like 2019 or so, yeah. And they came back and steamrolled them. So I wouldn't be surprised, not by that margin, but if let's say Houston gets off to a 10-0 lead or something like that, and the Chiefs wake up. So,
Yeah.
no, I definitely think the Texans show up. I think they give them a fight, but ultimately the Chiefs prevail by 11.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to go the opposite way. We do talk about the January playoff Chiefs. I think this is actually the year of January playoff Houston, where they finally end their divisional drought against Kansas City. I'm
Wow.
actually going to say I'm going to take Houston in an upset. I think Joey Mixon does a good job running the ball on him. I'm going to go Houston 24, Kansas City 21. I'm not going to go a crazy high score. I'm going to keep it a low score because I'm already predicting an upset. So
All right. Bold. I love it.
that's why I made my score choices a little careful because I picked Houston. So, so I have Houston ending Kansas City's three-peat there and moving on to the AFC Championship game.
Excellent.
Their opponent will be determined on the fourth game, but let's move on. So, number 2, following that game, we have the first AFC or NFC divisional game that same day on the 18th at 8 o'clock with the Washington Commanders taking on the number 1 seed Detroit Lions, getting a first-round bye there in the NFC. Joe, what do you think?
I think this is going to be closer than people think. The Lions are like 9.5-point favorites in this game, and I can understand why. And I think Washington gives them a run for their money. I think it's close right up until the end, and just one of these games, just when the Lions think they got it and they're putting it away, then here comes Washington again, and Jaden Daniels just won't go away. I have this one high scoring. I got Detroit 33, Washington 27.
Ooh. Okay. I'm gonna shock the world here. I'm gonna say Washington shocks the world because that 9.5-point spread, I think that not only motivates big game Jaden Big Game Daniels to not only cover the spread but go win it.
Wow.
Kind of like a Rocky Apollo second fight matchup. Jaden Daniels embraces the Rocky role, and I think Washington wins in a high-scoring game. I'm going to say Washington 38, Detroit 24.
Wow.
Because, like I said, that if Washington puts up enough points with that offense, it could be too late for Detroit to catch up because of the way they just pass the ball around like that.
Uh-huh.
In Cliff Kingsbury's run and shoot. So,
bold predictions here. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Much more interesting than my chalky ones.
Mm-hmm. And anyway, who's going to be their opponent? Let's move on to the second NFC divisional game. The first game on Sunday, January 19th at 3 o'clock on Fox between the LA Inglewood Rams versus the Philadelphia Eagles, or at the Philadelphia Eagles. Joe, what do you think?
Okay, I think this game, we see the real Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles did not play their best football, still got away with a win the other day, even though, again, like I said, it could have easily slipped away from them. One fluky play would have knocked them out. And I think, some of the emotion in Los Angeles and, playing this game here, I think takes its toll on the Rams a little bit. I still think it's a fairly close game, though, but I really think that the Eagles realize they didn't play so hot the other day, come out firing here. So they still win by 10. I'm going to go with the same score I had for a couple of games last week. Eagles 30, Rams 20.
As we talked about, the Rams are a tough team. They're motivated to go into Philadelphia and upset the Eagles. But I think the Eagles are going to also win this game. I think it's going to be a close game 2. I'm going to say the Eagles 45, the Rams 35, setting up an all NFC East AFC Championship game for me between the Commanders and the Eagles. It would be for a third time.
Yeah. All right, good stuff.
Mm-hmm. And number 4, the grand finale of this Ringling Brothers Circus show. Sunday, January 19th at 6:30, CBS. You know what that means. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson on the sidelines. Buffalo loves playing in these games when this crew's on the call. So we got Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens coming in to face a very motivated Buffalo Bills team who is looking to finally get past the divisional round for only the second time in their playoff streak under McDermott. Mm-hmm. So, Joe, what do you think?
All right. I have to say it. Ravens 40, Bills 7. No, just kidding, folks. Not going there. Now, I got to be honest with you. I love to make these predictions, and I look at a bunch of things, and I've been looking at this stuff so far, and honestly saying I have no idea. Now, I don't know if I said this backstage or if I said it on the show here, but believe it or not, the Ravens are actually favored in this game. The Ravens are 1.5-point favorites. Last I saw. Now maybe it's down to 1, in some places, but still, I can't believe the Bills are underdogs here. Playing a playoff game at home. So I did my number crunching, and I do things that I simulate the games. I said, okay, this is going to help me decide who's going to win this game. And you know what happened when I simulated the games? It came out tied. So I was like, I got to go with the home team with a little bit more experience. So when all is said and done, I got the Bills 28, the Ravens 27.
Great minds think alike, Joe. I think this is the year the Bills finally get past their AFC divisional demons. I know the Ravens are tough with Derrick Henry and Jackson, but I feel like that game in Baltimore, the first time, we just were unprepared to play. Plus, we also didn't have Teron Johnson, Bernard, and Milano on defense. Well, all those 3 guys are back. This game's in Buffalo. I think McDermott and Bobby Babbitt is going to have them ready. Now, here's my prediction. Not only do the Bills finally slay their AFC divisional demons, Tyler Bass is going to make a revenge from missing the kick last year against Kansas City. That's right, folks. He kicks his way us into the AFC Championship game. Bills 34, Ravens 31. Tyler Bass makes up for last year.
That would be an amazing story if it ended up that way. I love that. That's called redemption, and that would be the ultimate redemption.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously, I have Buffalo and Houston, which means we would get to host the AFC Championship game. Houston were to come to Buffalo, and but you have a chalk where we're the 2 seed and we're going to Arrowhead.
I got all chalk here, all home teams winning.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway, good luck to these teams. It is now that time in our show for a question of the week segment. So, Joe, would you like to give it a try?
Let's go for it.
Okay, Joe, here's your question. Can you guess this NFL receiver? He had 1,964 receiving yards in one season. He played on one team. Is it Megatron, Calvin Johnson, Michael Thomas, Justin Jefferson, or Cooper Kupp?
How many yards did he have in the one season?
1,964, which is 1,964.
Wow, it could be any of those guys. I'm gonna say, and I don't even know if this is the only team he's played for. Cooper Kupp.
No, it was Megatron, Calvin Johnson.
All right.
And he retired early at 35 and was, I think, the youngest player to be inducted into the Hall of Fame after he retired at 35.
Okay,
Well,
should have known that.
But he did it with 122 passes in 16 games in 2012. 122 receptions, I should say.
Hey, you want one? My friend Tom sent me one here.
Yeah, sure.
We go quick because I know we're kind of running over here. But let's see. I can go through maybe one of these. Whoops. Bear with me a second. All right, here we go. Who was the first NFL quarterback to throw for 3,000 passing yards? I got Roger Staubach, Terry Bradshaw, Fran Tarkenton, Ken Stabler, or Dan Fouts?
Fouts.
That's what I would have guessed. He tells me it is Fran Tarkenton.
Oh, it is Fran. Right, I knew Terry did it because Rich keeps saying that he was like 2,500, but he never got to 3,000.
Okay. Now I got one more, and I think you get this one. You can redeem yourself here. Who's the all-time sack leader? Reggie White, Mark Gastineau, Michael Strahan, Bruce Smith, Julius Peppers.
Is it Strahan?
He says Bruce.
Oh, it's Bruce Smith.
That's according to this. He doesn't.
I thought Strahan broke Gastineau's record when in 2001 when he made a sack in the final regular season game of that year.
For single season sack record.
Oh, right. That's why. Number one, it was Bruce. You were right.
Right.
I got those confused, but that's why I thought it was Strahan.
Nah, single season, you would be correct. But I think overall it was Bruce Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, good effort there. Thanks, Tom, by the way, for the questions. We always
thank you, Tom. Those were good questions. Well, it looks like we come to the end of our show. So, Joe, where can we find you on the social media landscape on Tuesday, January 14, 2025?
So lately on Twitter X, I'm talking about some of my favorite sports, lots of college basketball going on, hockey, NBA, and something called the NFL playoffs. So lots to talk about. Joe Dell Sports on Twitter X. You can get my 2 cents there.
Mm-hmm. And then you can find me, yours truly, on Bill's Chat, one at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also Jamie Muller, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags. My handle's right there on X. And at theforkball.com, where I write about all sports. Excuse me. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and ring the bell for notifications. For more content on Driving the Top Productions, like the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room or Open Mic Night, which is going to be starting pretty soon after this show, please visit our YouTube page, Twitch stream, Facebook stream, X stream, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, let's continue to pray for everyone and their families affected in the LA wildfires. Should Mike Tomlin be fired after 18 seasons as head coach of the Steelers? And shout out to Curtis Samuel for scoring his first touchdown in the postseason. And the quarterback for Chris Berman. Nobody circles the wagons when it's the wild card weekend and the Bills are the number 2 seed in the playoffs, and they're the number 2 seed for the 3rd year in the row in the AFC playoffs, like the Buffalo Bills. See you next week, folks.
Have a great week, everybody.